On the night of November 3rd, 2023, I found my wife's second phone hidden in the tampon box under our bathroom sink, and the first text I saw was from my brother Kyle. Same time tomorrow, your husband will be at parent-teacher conferences until 9. He always is. God, he's so predictable. I'd spent 36 years being predictable. I had 4 months to become someone they'd never see coming. If you've got some time, and maybe something to drink, settle in. This one's heavy, and it doesn't have the ending you might expect. So, why did I wait 4 months to burn it all down? Why not confront them that same night, throw the phone in their faces and walk out? That's what any normal person would do, right? But here's the thing. I wasn't raised to be normal. I was raised to be the solution to everyone else's problems. And after 36 years of training, I'd gotten really, really good at it. This is the story of how I went from being the family savior to the family villain. It's about my wife Jennifer, my brother Kyle, and the lie my whole family had been living for 15 years. It starts with betrayal, ends with a kind of freedom, and the middle part gets dark. But I promised myself when I started telling this that I wouldn't sugarcoat it, so here we go. I need to start way before that November night, back when I still believed my family was normal, back when I thought being the responsible one meant something other than being the sucker. Kyle and I grew up in suburban Columbus, Ohio, in one of those neighborhoods where everyone knows everyone, and Sunday dinners are sacred. My parents, Richard and Patricia Parker, were the kind of people who volunteered at church, hosted block parties, and believed in keeping up appearances. I was the older brother by 7 years, which meant I was supposed to set an example. Kyle was the baby, born when I was already in 2nd grade, learning to tie my shoes and read chapter books. From the start, Kyle was different, not in a bad way necessarily, just sensitive. He cried easily, had trouble sleeping, threw tantrums that could last hours. My parents called it being emotionally intelligent. Looking back, I think it was the first sign of what would become his greatest talent, making everyone around him responsible for his feelings. I remember being 8 years old, getting ready for my birthday party at the bowling alley when Kyle, barely 1, wouldn't stop screaming. Mom sat me down with this exhausted look and said, "Michael, honey, I know you're disappointed, but Kyle is having a really hard day. Can you be the bigger person and postpone your party?" I said yes, because that's what good big brothers did. We never rescheduled. I got a cupcake at home and told myself it was fine. That became the pattern. Kyle needed, so I adjusted. Kyle struggled, so I sacrificed. By the time I was in high school, I'd given up soccer. I was good, had a potential scholarship to a Division II school, because the tournament schedule conflicted with Kyle's therapy appointments, and Mom needed someone to drive him. Dad was working, I was available. Problem solved. You know what's messed up? I didn't even resent it. I'd been so thoroughly trained that my needs came second that I actually felt guilty for wanting things. When my guidance counselor asked why I wasn't pursuing the soccer scholarship, I told her I wanted to focus on academics. She looked at me like she knew I was lying, but she didn't push. Kyle's issues escalated in middle school. Behavioral problems, suspensions, therapists who cycled through with increasing frequency. Each one had a different diagnosis: ADHD, oppositional defiant disorder, depression, anxiety. The medications changed like seasons. Through it all, my parents insisted Kyle just needed understanding, patience, love. And I believed them because I was 19, 20, 21, and I didn't know any better. The Emily thing happened when I was in college. I was a junior at Ohio State, finally living away from home, dating this girl named Emily Chen from my history seminar. She was smart, funny, studying to be a veterinarian. We'd been together about 8 months when I brought her home for Thanksgiving 2009. Kyle was 15 then, and going through what my parents called a difficult phase. He'd been kicked out of his high school for fighting, was doing online classes from home, and had just gotten out of a brief stint in juvenile detention for vandalism. I felt bad for him, honestly. Being a teenager is hard enough without all that chaos. Emily was kind to him that weekend. Asked about his interests, didn't treat him like a problem. I thought it was sweet. I should have known better. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, Emily broke up with me out of nowhere. Wouldn't explain, just said I was too enmeshed with my family and she needed space. Then she transferred to Oregon State mid-year. I was devastated and confused. My parents were weirdly quick to comfort me, saying things like, "She wasn't right for you anyway," and You'll find someone who understands family loyalty. I thought they were just being supportive parents. I didn't know they'd paid her $15,000 to disappear. I didn't know Kyle had cornered her in our garage that Thanksgiving, told her she was too hot for a boring guy like Michael, and suggested they have some fun while I was out picking up dessert. I didn't know that when Emily told my parents they accused her of trying to seduce their troubled teenage son, threatened to call the police on her for statutory rape charges, never mind that Kyle had pursued her, and then offered her money to transfer schools and sign an NDA. I wouldn't know any of that for another 14 years. After Emily, I threw myself into school and work, got my teaching degree, landed a job at Columbus West High School, teaching history to sophomores and juniors. I liked it, loved it actually. The kids were honest in a way adults never were, and there was something satisfying about making the past come alive for them. Plus, the schedule was predictable, the benefits were decent, and I could actually help people without destroying myself in the process. By then, Kyle was in his early 20s and cycling through jobs, relationships, and relapses. He'd started using drugs in high school, first weed, then pills, then harder stuff. There were arrests, rehab stints, promises to change. My parents refinanced their house twice to pay for treatment centers. I contributed what I could from my teacher salary, which wasn't much, but I felt obligated. Here's a number I'll never forget. 17. That's how many times I bailed Kyle out of jail between 2010 and 2018. I kept a spreadsheet because my accountant said I might be able to claim some of it. I couldn't, but I kept tracking anyway. DUIs, possession charges, disorderly conduct, petty theft. 17 times I left work early or drove across town at 2 in the morning to sit in a police station waiting room, filling out forms, posting bail, listening to Kyle promise this was the last time. It was never the last time. In 2016, I met Jennifer. I'd gone to visit my buddy Andrew in the hospital. He'd broken his leg playing basketball, and Jennifer was his nurse. She was pretty, with dark hair and this way of smiling that made you feel like everything would be okay. We got to talking, exchanged numbers, started dating. What I loved about Jennifer was that she seemed to understand the family stuff without judging me for it. I told her about Kyle early on, figuring if it was going to be a deal breaker, better to know sooner than later. But she didn't run. She said she'd always been drawn to helping people, that she became a nurse because she wanted to make a difference. She worked in the ER at Riverside Hospital, saw people at their worst, and still believed in second chances. Looking back now with the clarity of betrayal, I can see she asked a lot of questions about Kyle. What was he like? What kind of help was he getting? Did I think he'd ever get better? At the time, I thought she was just being supportive, trying to understand my life. I didn't realize she was gathering intelligence. We got married in June 2018 at my parents' church, small ceremony, mostly family and close friends. Kyle was my best man because Dad insisted, and I didn't know how to say no. Kyle gave this speech at the reception about how I'd saved his life so many times, how he didn't know where he'd be without me, how Jennifer was lucky to have such a good man. People cried. Jennifer cried. She told me later that night, "Your family is so beautiful. The way you all support each other, that's real love." We went to Hawaii for our honeymoon, 8 days of beaches and room service and pretending the real world didn't exist. On day 6, my phone rang at 3 in the morning. Kyle had been arrested again, DUI and resisting arrest. Bail set at $5,000. I flew home early. Jennifer said she understood, said, "That's what family does." Even helped me book the flight. I should have seen it then. The way her understanding came too easily, like she'd been waiting for me to prove I'd always choose Kyle over her. Like she was testing me and I'd passed the wrong test. After the wedding, things settled into a routine. Jennifer worked rotating shifts at the ER. I taught school and coached the academic quiz bowl team. Kyle moved back in with our parents after losing another job, and Sunday dinners became mandatory family time. Mom's rule: no matter what was happening, we all showed up at their house every Sunday at 5 for pot roast and pretending we were functional. Jennifer volunteered to check in on Kyle during the week. She was a nurse, she said. She knew how to talk to people struggling with addiction and mental health. My parents loved her for it. Dad would say things like, "Michael, you found a real gem. Not every woman would be so understanding about Kyle." I agreed. I thought I'd won some kind of lottery, finding someone who didn't make me choose between my wife and my family. Turns out, I hadn't won anything. I'd just found someone who wanted access. The schedule worked in their favor. I taught until 3 most days, then had quiz bowl practice or parent-teacher conferences or grading. 2 nights a week, I taught an adult education history class that ran until 9. Jennifer worked 12-hour ER shifts, but they rotated, and her schedule was unpredictable. It was easy for her to say she was at work when she wasn't. Easy for Kyle to pretend he was job hunting or in therapy when he was really waiting for my wife to show up. The first red flag I can really remember, not just reconstruct with hindsight, was in January 2023. We were at Sunday dinner, the whole family around the table, and Jennifer's phone kept buzzing. She'd flip it face down, but it kept lighting up with texts. When I asked if everything was okay, she said it was just Kyle, having a hard day, asking for advice about a job application. I glanced at Kyle. He was eating mashed potatoes and didn't look up. Something felt off, but I couldn't articulate what. Mom saw me looking and said, "It's wonderful that Jennifer cares so much about Kyle's recovery. Not everyone would invest this much energy." And I felt guilty for being suspicious, so I let it go. That's what I was trained to do. Let it go. Be the bigger person. Trust people even when my gut said otherwise. The phone thing became a pattern. Jennifer started keeping her phone face down everywhere, put a new passcode on it, said it was because of new HIPAA regulations at work. Started taking calls in the bathroom, the garage, her car. When I'd walk into a room, she'd quickly close whatever she was looking at and smile like nothing was wrong. In July, I decided to surprise her with dinner after work. She'd texted that she was working a day shift, so I planned to pick her up from the hospital at 7 with takeout from her favorite Thai place. When I got there and asked for Jennifer Parker at the nurse's station, they said she'd called in sick that morning. I called her cell. No answer. I drove home. Her car wasn't there. I texted, "Where are you?" 45 minutes later. Was checking on Kyle. He had a panic attack. Didn't want to worry you. I called my parents' house. Dad answered. Kyle wasn't home. He'd been out with friends all day. When Jennifer got home an hour later, I asked where she'd really been. She looked at me like I'd slapped her and said, "Are you seriously tracking me? Interrogating me? Do you not trust me, Michael?" I apologized. I actually apologized for being concerned that my wife had lied about her location. She cried and said I was stressing her out, that she needed space to breathe, that she'd been at Target running errands and then went to check on Kyle at a park where he said he'd be. It didn't make sense, but I convinced myself it did, because the alternative was admitting my wife was lying to my face. By September, I started having these intrusive thoughts, memories of Emily breaking up with me, how sudden and strange it had been. I tried to find her on social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. She'd blocked me on everything. I searched her name in Ohio State, found an old student directory listing, but nothing current. I asked my parents about Emily once at Sunday dinner, just casually, like, "Hey, whatever happened to Emily Chen? I wonder if she's still in Oregon." My mother's face went tight. "Why are you bringing her up?" "Just curious." "She wasn't good for you, Michael. Let it go." Dad changed the subject to Kyle's new job prospect, and that was that. But I couldn't let it go. Something about the way Mom's expression had shifted, the quickness of the subject change, felt familiar. Felt like the way Jennifer looked when I caught her in small lies. On October 31st, Halloween, I came home early from parent-teacher conferences. They had ended at 7 instead of 9 because half the parents had canceled. Jennifer's car was in the driveway, lights on in our bedroom. I walked in quietly, not trying to be sneaky, just my normal way of moving through our house. I could hear her voice upstairs, talking on the phone. "I can't keep doing this. He's going to find out. No, I do love him, but..." I stood at the bottom of the stairs, frozen. She must have heard the floorboard creak because she appeared at the top, phone already lowered. She saw me and her face went through this progression: shock, calculation, performance. "That was Kyle," she said, walking down to meet me. "He's struggling again." "What can't you keep doing?" "Covering for Kyle's relapses. Your family puts too much on me, Michael. It's not fair." "Who are you telling you can't keep doing this?" "Kyle. I was telling Kyle I can't keep hiding his problems from your parents. He made me promise not to tell them he's using again, but I think they need to know." It sounded plausible. It sounded exactly like something Kyle would do, exactly like something my family would burden Jennifer with. But standing there looking at my wife, I realized I didn't believe her. I didn't believe a single word. That night, I lay awake next to her, listening to her breathe, and I made a decision. I was going to find out the truth. Not ask for it, not hope for it. Find it. November 3rd was a Friday. Jennifer was working a 12-hour shift, or so she said. I told her I had grading to do at home. Instead, I did something I'd never done in 6 years of marriage. I went through her things. I started with the obvious places: her nightstand, just books and lotion, her dresser drawers, clothes, normal stuff, her desk in the home office, bills, work schedules, nothing interesting. Then I remembered my sister-in-law once telling me that women hide things in the bathroom because men never look there thoroughly. I went into our master bathroom and started checking. Under the sink, behind the cleaning supplies, behind the toilet, in the linen closet. And there it was, in a tampon box shoved toward the back under the sink, underneath actual tampons, a phone I'd never seen before. My hands shook as I pulled it out. It was an older iPhone, not her current model. I pressed the power button. It turned on, no password. The first thing I saw when I opened the messages was a thread between J and K. The preview text was from yesterday. Can't wait to taste you again. Tomorrow while he's at conferences. I sat down on the bathroom floor. I think I knew, even before I started reading, what I was going to find. But knowing and seeing are different things. I scrolled up. The messages went back 2 years, 2 entire years. June 2022, when we'd been married 4 years. This is crazy. We're really doing this. I know, but you feel it too, right? Yeah. He'd never suspect his broken little brother, LOL. January 2023. Told M I'm helping with your therapy. Did he buy it? He always does. He's trained to believe me. May 2023. I think I'm pregnant? Shit, really? Yeah. Did 2 tests? Is it? Don't worry, he'll think it's his. He doesn't track my cycle. Are you happy? That it's ours? Yeah, I'm happy. I stopped breathing. Jennifer was 7 months pregnant. We'd celebrated in June, told everyone at Sunday dinner, bought baby furniture. My mother had cried with joy. I'd started reading parenting books. And it wasn't mine. I kept scrolling, but I was crying now. Ugly crying. The kind where you can't catch your breath. There were photos, videos, timestamps from our bedroom, our bed, taken while I was at work. Hotels I recognized, ones I'd driven past 100 times. There were messages about me, about how boring I was, how predictable, how he'll never change because he can't disappoint anyone. There was a video from September, Kyle's face grinning at the camera, saying, "Tell him," and Jennifer's voice, laughing, "Michael, you're too good for me. Way too good. That's why I need someone bad." I vomited into our toilet, sat there for I don't know how long, just staring at tile I'd grouted myself 3 years ago, in a bathroom I'd painted the color Jennifer wanted. I should have confronted her that night, should have called everyone, screamed, burned it all down immediately. But I didn't. You know why? Because for the first time in my entire life, I wanted to be strategic instead of reactive. I wanted to think instead of accommodate. I wanted to choose my moment instead of letting it be chosen for me. I copied everything to a cloud drive. Screenshots, photos, videos, all of it. Then I put the phone back exactly where I'd found it, exactly how it had been positioned. I washed my face, went downstairs, and texted Jennifer. "Not feeling well, went to bed early," she responded. "K, feel better, babe." At 11:04 p.m., another text came through. I saw the notification on her real phone, which she'd left on the kitchen counter. Kyle. "Is he asleep?" "Yeah." "Good. Miss you." I sat in the dark and thought about my brother's smirk at Sunday dinners, about my mother saying, "Family stays together," about every single time I'd been told to be the bigger person, to understand, to sacrifice. And I realized they'd been training me my whole life to accept this, to be so pathologically accommodating that I'd forgive anything, endure anything, just to keep the peace. I called in sick to work that Friday and for the following Monday and Tuesday. Told Jennifer I had the flu. She was concerned, but didn't push to come home and check on me. Said she'd pick up shifts to give me space to recover. I knew what that meant now. She was with Kyle. I used those 3 days to plan. First, evidence. I went through our credit card statements going back 2 years, found hotel charges I hadn't made, restaurants I'd never been to. A Marriott off exit 112 appeared 15 times between January 2023 and October 2023. I drove there, showed the desk clerk a photo of Jennifer and Kyle together. The clerk, a woman in her 50s with tired eyes, studied the photo. "Oh yeah, the couple in 304. They're here every other Tuesday like clockwork." "They're married?" I asked. She looked at me closer. "Wait, are you?" Oh, honey." She printed me receipt copies, gave me her name in case I needed a witness, said her own ex-husband had done something similar, and she understood. Second, finances. I opened a separate bank account at a different bank, transferred half of our joint savings, legally my right in Ohio, made an appointment with a divorce attorney for the following week. The attorney, a sharp woman named Patricia Greenberg, listened to my story without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "In Ohio, the husband is presumed to be the father of any child born during the marriage, regardless of biology. You'll need a DNA test to challenge paternity. We can request one as part of divorce proceedings." "How soon?" "We can file immediately, but it'll take time. I'll be honest, Mr. Parker. Given the pregnancy, there's a chance the court will ask you to wait until after the birth to finalize everything." "That's fine," I said. "I'm not in a hurry. I want to do this right." Third, the Emily investigation. I hired a private investigator. Cost me $800, worth every penny. He found Emily in Portland, Oregon. Married, 2 kids, working as a veterinary surgeon. I called her on a Tuesday evening. My hands were shaking. "Hello? Emily, this is Michael Parker. I know this is completely out of the blue, and you have every right to hang up, but I need to ask you about Thanksgiving 2009. Long silence. Then, "You really don't know, do you?" "Know what?" And she told me everything. Kyle cornering her in our garage, the threats, going to my parents for help, being accused of seducing a minor, the NDA, the $15,000 to transfer schools and never contact me again. "Your family is sick, Michael," Emily said. Her voice was shaking too. "I'm sorry I didn't fight harder. I was 19 and scared, and they made me feel like I'd done something wrong." "You didn't do anything wrong," I said. "He did this to you, and they covered it up." Is he doing it to other people?" "Yeah," I said. "He is." "I'll help however I can," Emily said. "I'm in therapy now, dealing with all of this. If you need me to make a statement, break the NDA, whatever, I'll do it. That money was blood money, and I've regretted taking it for 14 years. Fourth, documentation. I started recording conversations. Ohio is a one-party consent state, so I only needed my own permission. I wore a small recording device to Sunday dinners, to casual hangouts with Kyle, to conversations with my parents. And then I waited. I played the role of oblivious husband perfectly, because I'd been playing the role of oblivious son my entire life. I went to work, graded papers, attended Sunday dinners, rubbed Jennifer's pregnant belly when family was watching. I was the picture of a happy husband and soon-to-be father, but I was also gathering ammunition. On December 1st, I suggested couples counseling to Jennifer. "Just to prepare for being parents," I said. "I think it would be healthy." She was suspicious but agreed, probably thought I'd look paranoid and she could use it to her advantage. We booked a session with a therapist named Dr. Morrison for the first Tuesday in December. I wore my recording device. Dr. Morrison, a kind-faced woman in her 60s, asked us to introduce ourselves and share what brought us to therapy. I said, "I think my wife is having an affair with my brother." Jennifer's performance was perfect. Shock, hurt, tears. "What? Michael, this is insane. Why would you even think that?" Dr. Morrison. "Michael, that's a very serious accusation." "I found the phone," I said calmly. "I saw the messages." Jennifer's face changed. The performance cracked. She looked at me with something I'd never seen before, pure calculation. Then she made a choice. "Fine," she said. "Yes, I love Kyle. We didn't mean for it to happen, but it did." Dr. Morrison. "And the baby?" Jennifer hesitated. I don't know whose it is. Maybe Kyle's." Then she pivoted, like she'd been coached, like she'd prepared for this. "But you drove us together, Michael. You're never home. You care more about your students than me, more about your job than our marriage. Kyle was there. He listened. He made me feel wanted. I just looked at her. Kyle did this exact same thing to my college girlfriend, Emily Chen, in 2009. My parents paid her $15,000 to transfer schools and sign an NDA. She's willing to talk now. Jennifer froze. What? I found her. She told me everything. This is a pattern, Jennifer. You're not special. You're just victim number 2. The session ended shortly after that. Dr. Morrison suggested individual therapy for both of us and said couples work wouldn't be appropriate given the circumstances. I thanked her and left. Jennifer sat in the car outside the therapist's office for 20 minutes before driving away. I had it all on recording. Over the next 2 weeks, I built my coalition. I told my best friend Andrew everything, showed him the evidence, played him the recordings. He and his wife Rachel were horrified. Dude, Andrew said, we all thought Kyle was a manipulative asshole. We just didn't say anything because your family is so, we didn't think you'd believe us. I believe you now, I said. I reached out to Jennifer's younger sister, Lindsay, who'd never liked Kyle, showed her the messages. She cried and said, I knew something was off. I'm so sorry, Michael. By mid-December, I had a folder 2 inches thick, DNA test request filed through my attorney, divorce papers drafted but not served, Emily's written statement, hotel receipts, recorded therapy confession, screenshots of 2 years of messages, and a plan. My family loved big announcements at Sunday dinner, engagements, pregnancies, promotions. It all happened at that dining room table. So, I decided Christmas dinner, December 23rd. When everyone would be there. The days leading up to Christmas were surreal. I went through the motions, wrapped presents, went to work, pretended everything was normal. Jennifer thought I'd let it go, thought my silence meant acceptance. She even seemed happier, more affectionate. I realized she'd been planning to have me raise Kyle's baby all along, and now that it was out in the open in her mind, she could relax. Kyle was cocky. At Sunday dinners, he'd catch my eye and smirk. Once, when Jennifer went to the bathroom, he said, You're really taking this well, man. That's mature. I just smiled and said, Yeah, well, I've had practice being the bigger person. Christmas dinner, 2023. The Parker family gathered at my parents' house. Dad, Mom, Kyle, Jennifer, 7 months pregnant, Aunt Carol and Uncle Steve, Grandma Parker. I brought my laptop, told everyone I'd made a family slideshow for Christmas. We ate pot roast, made small talk. Jennifer sat next to me, hand on her belly, talking about nursery colors. Kyle sat across from us, relaxed, drinking wine. After dinner, before dessert, I stood up. Actually, I need to share something before we look at the slideshow. Mom smiled. Oh, is this another baby announcement? Is Jennifer having twins? No, I said. I pulled an envelope from my coat pocket. These are DNA test results. I had an amniocentesis done on Jennifer's pregnancy. She signed the consent form last month, though I don't think she read it carefully. Jennifer went white. You... what? I handed the paper to my father. Kyle is the biological father. The silence in that room was absolute. You could hear the clock ticking on the mantel, the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. My mother spoke first. This has to be wrong. Labs make mistakes all the time. Dad looked at Kyle. Tell them this is wrong. Kyle opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Jennifer started crying. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Michael. There's more, I said. I opened my laptop, pressed play on a pre-recorded video call. Emily's face filled the screen. Hi, Parker family, she said. You paid me $15,000 in 2009 to stay quiet about Kyle sexually pursuing me while I was dating Michael. I was 19 years old, and I came to you for help, and you accused me of seducing your son. You threatened me with statutory rape charges even though Kyle was the one who cornered me in your garage and told me if I didn't sleep with him, he'd ruin my reputation. Emily continued, calm and clear, describing everything. Showed the bank transfer receipt with my father's signature. Explained how she'd been in therapy for years, dealing with the trauma of being gaslit and threatened by adults she'd trusted. Turn it off, my mother's voice cracked. No, I said. The video ended. I played the audio recording from the therapy session, Jennifer's voice. We didn't mean for it to happen, but it did. I don't know whose baby it is. Maybe Kyle's. Kyle stood up. You're crazy, you're fucking crazy, Michael. Sit down, Kyle. No, this is insane. You're twisting everything. I pulled out the printed screenshots, 50 plus pages, threw them on the table. They scattered across the pot roast platter. Messages from Jennifer's burner phone, I said. 2 years of planning, hotel receipts. They had sex in our bed, in our house, while I was at work. I picked up one page, read aloud. June 2022. Jennifer. He'd never suspect his broken little brother. Yes, Kyle. I know, he's trained to believe me. Grandma started crying. Uncle Steve said, Jesus Christ. Kyle's mask finally slipped. He started screaming. You self-righteous asshole. You think you're so perfect? You think you're better than me. I never said I was perfect, I said quietly. But I was loyal. You were boring, Kyle yelled. Jennifer wanted someone with actual passion, someone who wasn't grading papers every night like some pathetic... Kyle, honey, you're upset. Mom reached for him. He pulled away. She came to me. She was bored with your pathetic teacher salary and your grading papers and your let me help everyone bullshit. She wanted someone who actually lived. Jennifer. Kyle, stop. And Emily, she was throwing herself at me. They all do, because I'm not some robot like Michael who just does what everyone tells him. The room erupted. Aunt Carol started yelling at Kyle. Uncle Steve stood up, said something about getting some air. Grandma was sobbing. My parents were trying to calm Kyle down, but he was spiraling, saying worse and worse things, revealing more than he'd ever meant to. I just stood there and watched the family I'd sacrificed everything for destroy itself. Finally, I picked up my coat. I'm leaving, I said. Jennifer, divorce papers will be served Monday. I'm not paying for Kyle's child. I've already transferred my portion of our joint accounts, which is legal. You'll hear from my attorney. I turned to my parents. You've enabled him for 29 years. Emily was victim 1. Jennifer was victim 2. How many more before you admit what he is? My mother grabbed my arm. You can't leave on Christmas. I pulled away gently. I can, because unlike Kyle, I don't need you. I looked at my brother one last time. You played broken your whole life. I hope it was worth it. I walked out. Behind me, I heard my mother wailing, Kyle screaming something about how I'd ruined everything, my father's voice telling me to come back. I got in my car and drove away from that house for the last time. Christmas night, I stayed at Andrew's house. Rachel made up their guest room, didn't ask questions, just brought me tea and said I could stay as long as I needed. The next day, my phone exploded. Text after text from my mother, from Jennifer, from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. I blocked most of them. The ones I didn't block, I saved as evidence. My Aunt Carol called. Michael, your Uncle Steve and I are done with your parents. We believe you. That was the most horrifying thing I've ever witnessed. My grandmother called. I didn't know, sweetheart. I didn't know about Emily. I'm so sorry. But my parents? They sent one text. You've destroyed this family. We hope you're happy. I wasn't happy, but I was free. The fallout was extensive and messy and brutal. Jennifer moved back in with her parents in Cincinnati. Her mother called me once, crying, saying she'd raised Jennifer better than this. Her father said if I needed anything at all, he'd help. Jennifer's sister Lindsay went public on Facebook, posted a carefully worded message about family secrets and betrayal that went viral in our social circle. The nurses at Jennifer's hospital found out. Healthcare is a small world in Columbus, and word spread fast. Several of Jennifer's colleagues unfriended her on social media. One of them, a charge nurse who'd worked with Jennifer for 6 years, told me later, "We all thought she was so devoted to her family. We don't even know who she really is." Jennifer called me 43 times in the first week. I blocked her number. She showed up at my school once in early January. Security escorted her off property. The principal called me in and said, "Take whatever time you need. Your job is secure," and we flagged her in our system. Kyle spiraled. On January 15th, he overdosed on pills at my parents' house. My mother found him and called 911. He survived, was put on a 72-hour psychiatric hold at Riverside Hospital, ironically, where Jennifer used to work. My mother called me from the hospital. "Kyle is asking for you. Please, Michael. He could have died. He's not my responsibility anymore. He's your brother." "He stopped being my brother when he slept with my wife," I said, and hung up. An hour later, my father called. "How can you be so cold? He tried to kill himself." "Did he?" I asked. "Or is this another manipulation, another emergency to make me come running?" "He's in the hospital." "That's between him and his doctors. I'm done, Dad." There was a long silence. Then my father said something I'll never forget. "You're turning your back on family." "No," I said. "I'm turning my back on people who turned their backs on me first." I hung up, and I felt nothing. No guilt, no grief, just exhaustion. That's when I got scared. Had I become the monster I hated? Had I pushed too far? I called my new therapist, Dr. Rachel Chen. No relation to Emily, just a coincidence. I had started seeing her the week after Christmas. "I don't know if I did the right thing," I told her in our emergency session. "Kyle tried to kill himself, and I feel nothing." "Do you think you should feel something?" she asked. "Isn't that what normal people do? Feel bad when their brother is hospitalized?" "Michael, for 36 years, you've been trained to feel responsible for Kyle's emotions, Kyle's choices, Kyle's life. The fact that you don't feel responsible now isn't proof you're cold. It's proof you're healing. But what if he really is sick? What if I pushed him to this? Did you force him to have an affair with your wife? Did you force him to pursue Emily? Did you force your parents to enable him for 3 decades? No. Then you didn't push him anywhere. He made choices. This is a consequence. And consequences aren't punishment. They're information." That conversation helped, but it didn't erase the doubt completely. In February, my father reached out, asked to meet for coffee. I almost said no, but Dr. Chen suggested it might give me closure, so I agreed. We met at a Starbucks on High Street, neutral ground. He looked 10 years older than he had at Christmas. Gray, tired. "I need to tell you something," he said. "About Emily, about the money. I already know about the money. I know you do, but I need to say it out loud, to you, to admit it." He took a breath. "We paid her off because we believed Kyle. He told us she'd been flirting with him all weekend, that she'd cornered him in the garage, that she was trying to ruin him. The therapist he was seeing at the time said that people with trauma sometimes lie to protect themselves, that we needed to believe Kyle's reality. So we did. You chose to believe a 15-year-old kid over a 19-year-old woman who came to you for help. Yes, we did, and we were wrong." His voice cracked. "I'm sorry, Michael. I'm so sorry." "Why did you believe him?" "Because accepting that he was lying meant accepting that we'd failed him, that we'd raised someone capable of that kind of manipulation, and it was too painful. So you made it Emily's pain instead, and then mine." He nodded, tears running down his face. "Can you forgive us?" I sat with that question for a long time. The coffee shop buzzed around us, students studying, couples talking, normal people living normal lives. "I don't know," I finally said. "Maybe someday, but not now. Not yet." "That's fair," he said. "You need to know something, Dad. Kyle isn't sick. Or if he is, he's also a predator. Those two things can coexist. And you enabled him because it was easier than holding him accountable. I know that now." "Do you?" "Because Mom is still making excuses for him. I've seen her Facebook posts." He winced. "Your mother is in therapy too. We both are. Trying to figure out where we went wrong." "I can't fix that for you," I said. "I can't be your therapist or your absolution. I can't even be your son right now. I just need space." We left it there. I didn't hate him exactly. I understood him in a sad, distant way. He was a father who'd made terrible choices out of fear and denial. But understanding didn't mean forgiveness, and it definitely didn't mean reconciliation. Kyle moved into a sober living facility in March after his psychiatric hold ended. My parents gave him an ultimatum: real therapy, real accountability. Or they were cutting him off financially. He chose therapy, whether because he wanted it or because he had no other options, I don't know. Through the family grapevine, Grandma mostly, I heard he was doing better, working part-time at a mechanic shop, attending NA meetings, seeing a therapist who specialized in personality disorders. I didn't verify any of it. It wasn't my job anymore. Jennifer had the baby in April, a girl. She named her something I won't repeat here because the kid didn't ask for any of this. Kyle's name is on the birth certificate. Jennifer tried to get him to pay child support, but he claimed he was unemployed and had no income. The courts couldn't make him pay what he didn't have. I heard through Lindsay that Jennifer was struggling. Single motherhood, no support system, working longer shifts to afford daycare. Part of me felt bad for her, but most of me remembered the text that started all of this. He's so predictable. Yeah, I was predictable, until I wasn't. The divorce was finalized in March. Ohio's adultery laws favored me. I kept the house, got half of everything, had no financial obligation to the child. My lawyer, Patricia, said it was the cleanest divorce she'd handled in years because the evidence was so overwhelming. Life moved forward in small, quiet ways. I stayed in therapy, went every week, worked through layers of codependency and family trauma I didn't know I had. Dr. Chen helped me understand that I'd been the family scapegoat disguised as the family hero, the strong one who could handle anything, which really meant the convenient one who never complained. I started running again in the spring, something I'd loved in high school but quit because Kyle needed time, attention, resources. I'd forgotten how good it felt to move, to push my body, to be alone with my thoughts in a healthy way. I adopted a dog in May, a border collie from a rescue, 3 years old, named Scout. She was anxious and reactive and needed someone patient. We were a good match. I kept teaching. My students knew. It's a small school, word spreads, but they were kind about it. One senior wrote her college essay about a teacher who showed me that boundaries are self-love. She got into her top choice school. I cried when she told me. In June, Andrew introduced me to his cousin, Sarah. She was a librarian at the Columbus Metropolitan Library, divorced 2 years ago. No kids. We met at Andrew's birthday barbecue and ended up talking for 3 hours about historical fiction and what makes a good villain. Not a villain who's evil for no reason, she said. A villain who thinks they're the hero. That's terrifying because it's real. Yeah, I said. It is. We went on our first official date in July. Dinner at a Mexican place, then a walk around Goodale Park. She knew my story. Andrew had told her the basics, and she didn't ask invasive questions. Just let me share what I wanted when I wanted. By September, we were dating steadily, taking it slow. Neither of us was rushing into anything, but it felt healthy, reciprocal. She had her own life, her own friends, her own therapist. We chose to spend time together. Neither of us needed the other to function. I started a graduate program in counseling in August, online classes through Ohio State. I wanted to work with teenagers dealing with family trauma. Help them set boundaries before they spent 36 years being everyone's solution. My grandmother and I started meeting for lunch once a month. She apologized more times than I could count, but eventually we settled into just spending time together. She told me stories about my grandfather, who died when I was little, and how he'd struggled with similar family dynamics with his own brother. Patterns, she said. They repeat until someone breaks them. I'm proud of you for breaking yours. One evening in September, I drove past my parents' house on the way to Sarah's apartment. Saw Kyle's car in the driveway. Probably there for Sunday dinner, the tradition still continuing without me. I felt nothing. No anger, no longing, no grief. Just neutral observation, like noticing the weather. Some birds are just broken, I thought. Others just play broken. And some of us were taught to carry both kinds until our backs broke. I don't carry anyone anymore. By December 2024, 1 year after the Christmas dinner that changed everything, my life looked completely different. Kyle was still in sober living, still working at the mechanic shop. Through Grandma, I heard he was doing therapy 3 times a week and had supervised visits with his daughter every other weekend. I didn't ask for details, didn't need them. Jennifer was raising her daughter alone, working at a different hospital, allegedly dating someone new. Lindsay told me Jennifer had sent her an email on the anniversary of the Christmas reveal. I'm sorry, I was broken too. I didn't respond, but I didn't delete it either. Maybe someday I'd have something to say to that. Not today. My parents were still together, still in therapy, relationship with Kyle described by Grandma as complicated. My father asked to see me every few months. I said yes twice. Coffee meetings where we talked about surface things and avoided the deep ones. My mother hadn't spoken to me directly. I'd made peace with that. Sarah and I had been dating for 6 months. In October, she'd met Scout and they'd bonded immediately. She brought books to my house, fell asleep on my couch reading, fit into my life without demanding I reshape it. I was learning what healthy love felt like. Calm, steady, reciprocal. I was still teaching, still in therapy, still running. I'd completed my first 10K in November, something 17-year-old me would have done easily if he'd been allowed. 37-year-old me did it carrying a lot more weight, but I finished. I'd also completed my first semester of graduate school. Turns out, trauma doesn't have to be wasted. It can be transformed into purpose if you do the work. One Saturday morning in December, I woke up and realized I hadn't thought about Kyle or Jennifer in 3 days. 3 whole days. Scout was snoring at my feet. I had student essays to grade, and Sarah had texted about a book club meeting. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was mine. I went to school on Monday, winter 2024, to set up my classroom for the new semester. I was putting up new posters, historical figures, important dates, inspirational quotes. One poster said, "Boundaries aren't mean, boundaries are self-love." A student, one of my sophomores from last year, stuck her head in. "Hey, Mr. Parker, room looks good." "Thanks, Maya. That poster is cool. Where'd you learn that? About boundaries?" I thought about the answer, thought about therapy sessions and painful realizations and nights lying awake wondering if I'd done the right thing. "The hard way," I said. "Did it help?" I looked at my phone. Text from Sarah. "Dinner at 7, my place." Text from Andrew. "Game night Thursday." Email from my grad program advisor. "Accepted into family system specialization. Congrats!" I smiled. "Yeah, it did." Maya left. I finished putting up posters, organized my desk, wrote the new semester's schedule on the whiteboard. In a few hours, I'd go home to Scout, prep for dinner with Sarah, maybe call Grandma to confirm our lunch date this weekend. This was my life now. Quiet, intentional, mine. I never got a real apology from my parents. Kyle never admitted he was wrong. Jennifer never explained why in a way that made sense. But I stopped waiting for closure from people who couldn't give it. I gave it to myself. And that's how I learned. Some birds aren't meant to carry others. Some of us are meant to fly alone. And that's not loneliness. That's freedom. If you made it this far, thanks for listening. I know it's a long story, and it doesn't have the revenge ending some people want. Kyle didn't lose everything. Jennifer isn't destitute. My parents didn't come crawling back with perfect apologies. But I got something better than revenge. I got myself back. The me who liked running. The me who wanted to help people without destroying myself. The me who could say no without apologizing. The me who could sit with Scout and Sarah and Andrew and feel like I belonged somewhere. Not because I was useful, but because I was wanted. That's the plot twist they never saw coming. I didn't destroy them. I just stopped letting them destroy me. And somehow, that was enough.